We're talking about the steps you need to take to start a blog today, specifically for people who are looking to support their coaching business, or maybe they're experts. I wouldn't consider myself a coach. I would consider myself more in that expert category of the title of this video. So Jana, you wrote a blog post about this recently, and that's kind of what spurred this conversation.
Yeah.
Do you want to take
Yeah.
us away?
Sure. Yeah, I did write a blog post about this. It was called 5 steps to start your coaching blog, or a coaching blog that like fills your client roster. And I'm really glad that you framed the conversation the way you did just now, because that's actually step number one. When I wrote out my 5 steps and like kind of decided what the format would be for the blog post. And if anybody wants to go deeper on this, I'll be putting the blog post in our like show notes in the note in the description of this video later. But if anybody wants, or excuse me, sorry, no, I already said that part. The five, the 5 parts. I'm a little out of it still. It's still like getting over my cold. Um, but that's really step 1 of 5 for me, is getting clear on what the purpose is of your blog. And I know people say that all the time, like you have to have a purpose, you have to have a strategy, you have to have a goal. And the truth of the matter is you don't. Like some people just start blogs for fun, and that's okay too. But we're not really talking about starting blogs for fun today. We're talking about starting them to support your business. And we're not talking about becoming a blogger. I always say like there's a difference between having a blog as your business and having a blog for your business. And it sounds like semantics, but basically having a blog as a business means you're a blogger. Like that's your full-time job. Like you have a blog and you monetize it with ads and affiliate links. And, you might create your own digital products at some point too. But when we talk about starting a blog that is for your business, for your coaching business, if you're a coach, if you're a strategist, if you're an expert, if you have a membership like Heather does, if you have courses like I do, if you're a health coach, if you're a relationship coach, right, and you're using your blog to get clients, we're talking about creating a blog that is not your full-time job, because your full-time job is to work with clients, right? And in your membership, if you're Heather, for example, with your students and whatnot, um, the blog is there to support your business and to bring you more clients and more buyers and more people into your orbit, and also to convert them as well. The way I teach it is that your blog posts should actually convert people from audience to buyers, audience to clients. So that's step one, is getting clear on that. I know, Heather, I'm sure you've seen it too. Like people get really confused and kind of like messed up strategy wise. And even like it's hard to even understand what your day-to-day actions should be if you're following advice from people who are like giving advice for people who are bloggers and monetize their blog as a blogger versus people who have a blog for their business that just supports the sales of their services and products. Do you see that a lot too?
Yeah, people who have historically never written blog posts before and have maybe, different models where they do monetize with coaching or, selling service-based offers,
Yeah.
they still want to be able to be found on Google, and blog posts are a really great way to do that and also show your expertise to your potential clients. They get caught up in the fact that they need to be writing consistently or have this mindset that, oh, I'm going to have to write a blog post like every day.
Right.
Or, I have to, how am I going to monetize this again? Like affiliates? Like, what is that for my
Right.
business?
Exactly. That's
Um,
exactly it. It's those little rabbit holes that are dangerous, because if your blog is there for your business to get you more clients, let's say, but you see somebody post something that's like how to make money with a blog, and you're like, yeah, I do want my blog to make me more money. And so it's talking all about affiliate links, and now you're down that rabbit hole. There's a lot of like little day-to-day decisions and like optimizations that you can do with a blog that you don't really have to do, honestly, if you're a coach or a strategist or someone like the people we're talking about. But if you're a blogger and you have a blog and you monetize with ads, affiliate links, that's your full-time gig, then all those little optimizations and the visuals and the jump links and all those little like things that
yeah.
are little tactics like are important, so it can be really confusing for people. So I hope that people who are listening, who are coaches and strategists and the like, realize that like not all blogging advice is for you, basically. But
Right.
what we talk about now will be today, because that's what we're talking about.
The majority of blogging advice online, I find, is targeted to people who are looking to start or teach people to start blogs using sponsorships or
Yeah.
brand deals or affiliate links and display ads.
Right.
And I have literally never done any of those things.
Right, because you're not a blogger. You are a strategist and a membership founder who has a blog.
Yeah, and blog posts are a really great way for me to build trust and get people into my funnels. And,
Yeah,
you can do the same. And I think another thing that people get caught up with is, um, well, what kind of content do I create for that? And we're going to talk
right.
about that. So if you guys are
Mhm.
thinking that, we're going to get to it. But my next question is, Jana, one of the things, and I haven't read the blog post, excuse me for my
Oh,
not,
no, no worries.
not reading it yet.
What?
I am wondering if you covered in the blog post things like, oh my gosh, do I use WordPress? Or do I use Squares? Like, where do I put the blog?
Yes, yeah. And so many people get obsessed with that. And it's okay. Like I get it. It's important because you're trying to like visualize what it's going to be like to have a blog. And when that happens, one of the things is like, well, where will my blog live? And it's sort of similar. I see this all the time too, where people who want to create an online course, the first thing that they're like obsessed with trying to figure out is which platform to choose. Like, should it be Teachable? Should it be Kajabi? Should it be this? When at the end of the day, like that's like honestly like
Who
it's such
cares?
a neutral, almost a neutral decision that it's not that it doesn't matter, but it's just not the big, decisions that need to be made.
Yeah.
But yes, in the blog post, that's actually step number two. Once you're clear, step number one is getting clear on your goals, making sure you remember that you're not a blogger, you're a coach with a blog. Number two is figuring out where your blog will go. And I broke it down based on like different platforms in terms of like WordPress, Squarespace, Wix, Kajabi, things like that. And really just talking briefly, honestly, in the blog post about like how to choose them. And I think there's kind of three things to consider, like your tech comfort level, your growth plans for your
Mhm.
blog, and then your budget too. Like those are really the three considerations. But I think all the platforms can work for a coach or a strategist or someone like us who has a blog. Like there isn't really any main like website or blogging platform as long as you own the domain. We'll talk about that for a second too. That if someone came to me and said like, could I have my blog on this one? I'd be like, oh no, that won't work. Like honestly, anything's going to work. The only thing, well, before we get there, like, what do you think about that? I mean, do you have favorite platforms? Do you think that, are you kind of platform agnostic when it comes to this, or how do you feel about it?
I honestly think it just depends on your level of tech,
Yeah,
and willingness to learn. If you need something that's plug and play and you don't want to have a lot of control over design, then something like Squarespace, which you can have a lot of control over design with Squarespace if you are kind of moving up to that next level. Something plug and play like that is very easy. Um, I'm a WordPress girly. I use
me too.
Show It,
Me
and then
too.
my blog is actually plugged in through WordPress, and we find that to work just fine for us. And I've always used WordPress. And honestly, a lot of people are really afraid of WordPress, but it's so easy to apply a theme and just work within the bounds of that theme. And you don't even need to have a lot of tech experience to do that. Um, and you just write your blog post in WordPress, and it's so easy
Yep.
to do.
Yep. I agree. I think I'm a WordPress girly too. And I think the reason people get worried about WordPress is because there are so many options and so many things you could do with WordPress that again, there's like those rabbit holes you can go down and you can start to see like, oh, there's all these things I could be doing. Does that mean I should be doing all of those things? And I think most of the time, again, if you're this kind of person, right, someone who has a blog for their business, usually the answer is no, you don't need to do all those things.
A
As
lot
long as you've got a nice, clean, readable interface, it's going to be the content that's going to be more important.
Something that oftentimes comes out of this conversation, and we have Deanna in the chat today with us, and she's a
Hey.
blogging genius, she
Oh,
says. Um, I oftentimes will get a question like, well, should I use WordPress because of SEO? And I really just want you all to know that SEO does not start and end with the Yoast plugin for WordPress.
right.
Okay, so you can use, if you want to use your coaching Kajabi website where you host your courses as a starter place for a blog, you can always move that home later somewhere else. You're not like tied in. So if you just want to get started, because if you don't make a choice, you're not going to do it, then just start where you can, and we can have the discussion of like, let's create a WordPress website for a blog, or let's create a Squarespace website for a blog later on. If the reason why you are putting it off is because, oh my gosh, like this SEO thing, like,
Right. Right. Well, I mean, I have my own very strong opinions about SEO, and I don't even know
yeah,
if I don't know if we have time to get to those today, but basically bottom line is for my community, for the people who I have who join high leverage content, my program, the health and wellness coaches, the relationship coaches, the strategists, people generally in my community, I don't even recommend that they worry about SEO when they're first starting their blog, because their blog again is for their business. They're not starting a blog to monetize it with ads. I know I've said that already and whatever. Really the blog is there so that when people find you, they can go binge your content, see all the things, and we'll get to this in a minute, that they need to be ready to buy and be ready to buy when you make those offers. So I personally have, like I said, I have this whole, completely different, I want to say unpopular opinion about SEO, but actually I've realized it's not really unpopular. It's actually very popular. I just didn't realize it, that you shouldn't even worry about SEO until you have like at least 10 posts on your blog, if you're a coach or service-based business. So that's a whole nother conversation for another day, maybe even a whole video that we do on that, a whole live video. But I agree with you. I think that again, start your blog on your own website, wherever that is. And honestly, I know coaches and service-based businesses who have their blogs on like Kajabi or Wix, and they've been there forever and they're not going to move them. So like, yes,
yeah,
you could move it to WordPress or Squarespace down the road or something, but you won't have to, assuming that you continue to, be a coach who has a blog for your business, not
yeah.
someone who's, again, monetizing in a different way. So,
So
but
that
yeah,
covers, I think, from ear to ear, the conversation of like the tacticality of putting your blog somewhere on the internet.
right.
Let's just make the decision and we'll get it out there. And if we have to come back to the conversation of where to host it later, we will do that.
Yep,
For now, we're just
exactly.
going to choose a place and we're going to start.
Right. And my blog post, the one that I'll put in the comments here or in the description, it goes into more detail and all that, but that's the broad strokes, and that's what people really need to know when they're like right now, as we're kind of going through these, like, here's the big picture staircase that you'll need to climb in order to have a blog for your business, these 5 steps. The only part we didn't really talk about was like, I have been hearing a lot more these days, like, should I have my blog on Medium or Substack? Um, and I'm still learning about these things, but I know you know a little bit more about them than I do, because you actually kind of taught me some stuff
Yeah.
last month when I was in Arizona, or 2 months ago. But what do you think about that? Do you get that question, and how do you answer it?
I haven't gotten that question a ton. I have heard this being discussed amongst the internet places that I hang out. Um, I personally think if you're going to have your own blog and you want it to be a place that drives business to you, you need to have your own website
Mhm.
instead of a third-party domain. If you want to do syndicated content or have another strategy like that where you can have a Substack or a Medium, Substack and Medium, just to be clear, are two different platforms with two different goals. Substack is
Mhm.
very much like a monetized first email newsletter ecosystem. Um, Not super happy with some of their political decisions lately. We won't get into that now.
Yep.
Um, Medium is long known for being a place to blog on the internet for a lot of people. I just think if you're going to have a blog that supports the overall business, it really should be one that you can, in the long term, optimize for SEO, and you should have your own domain.
Yeah. And for me, it's not only just about SEO, it's just being able to control your own,
Yeah.
in all ways, and
Yeah.
maybe SEO is one way, but there's lots of reasons and ways you want to be able to control
Mhm.
your own blog, and you don't, if it's somewhere else. So I almost, would encourage people to think about Substack and Medium, even though they're long form content, as like almost more like social media, like a place where you can go and um, it's like a pre-built platform where you can put some content, but it's not really your blog,
Well,
right? You know,
one of the issues with Medium that I have and have always had is they've pretty much put everything behind a paywall. So you get like 5 free articles a month.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you're writing more than that, chances are your audience isn't going to even be able to read it anyways.
Mm. Which definitely kind of defeats the point that I want people to be thinking about as coaches and strategists and service providers with a blog,
Mhm.
which is that we really want a place where people can go and read, a bunch of your content, binge read or however you want to say it.
Mhm.
Because the way that, and this is what we're going to talk about next, but the way that I think about what your blogs should actually say is that they need to be able to show people and teach them and demonstrate for them the things that they need to hear, learn, and understand more deeply to be ready to buy from you, to be ready to hire you as their coach. And if they can't get to all your stuff, right? Because it's like behind a paywall and Medium,
Yeah.
yeah, I can see how that kind of defeats the purpose.
Mhm. Okay. Deanna brings up a really good point to always read the fine print with third-party websites like that because in some situations you
Yeah,
could possibly put your content on that platform and they maybe own
yeah,
if they decide to shut the business down, then bye-bye goes all that content, or if they decide to delete you, anything like that. So that's kind
yeah.
of always the argument of owning your own space and your own domain and just putting it on your own site.
Yep. Yep. And then last thing I'll say is just for the purpose of thinking about what your blog is doing for you, if you're again a coach or a strategist, like it just makes it so that you have like this one-stop shop on your website for the best conversion, really. So it acts as your brand, your website is your brand's hub. And so visitors on your blog can not only engage with your blog, but right there on the blog, they can join your email list, explore your services. There's links to, there could be testimonials. You could have a hello bar at the top with an opt-in. Like there's so many things that basically make it so that like the whole point of your blog is to get people to take that next step. And that's going to be a lot more easy and like more integrated and seamless for people if you control it and it's on your website right there with all the rest of your stuff, your offers and your about page and all that kind of stuff, right? So.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about writing and publishing the blog content.
Yeah.
What does this look like?
Yeah. So I think for me, okay, so we talked about steps 1 and 2. One is get clear on your goal. Step 2 is
Oh,
where you're going to have your blog.
we missed step 3. Sorry, I just skipped right past it.
Oh, no, that's okay. Step 3 is kind of, we didn't really, because what you just asked like leads into step 3. Step 3 is to strategize and plan your first set of blog posts. So you don't necessarily just sit down and start writing any old thing, right? What I want you to do for step 3 is basically start figuring out what you're going to write about, but be very intentional about it. So the biggest mistake that I see coaches and people like that do with their blogs is that they just start writing without thinking about what types of posts are actually going to convert their readers to coaching clients. And again, if you're a service provider or a strategist or have a membership like Heather does, I'm talking about you too. I'm using the term coach very loosely. So before you just start writing randomly, it's really like you get intentional and you're developing a content strategy for your blog. And when you hear people say like, oh, you have to have a content strategy, that's what this means. So you want your posts to work really hard for you. You want them to truly represent your unique thought leadership, and you want them to build demand for your paid offers and build trust in you as the expert. So in order to do that, you just want to be really intentional about your topics, and you want to structure your actual blog posts in a certain way to bring people along on that. We talk about this all the time, but the customer journey. So the way I do that inside of high leverage content, or the way I teach it, is that I have the 9 and 2 content pillar system. So I believe that there's like these 9 things that you need to have in your blog, your long form content, so that people have everything there that they need to, again, everything that they need to learn, hear the shifts that they need to make in their mind, so that they will be ready to buy your thing and hire you. So that's really the point of strategizing and planning before you jump in and start writing. So the way I teach it inside HLC is that you brainstorm like 10 topics at least in each of the 9 categories. And then I have a system that I teach that's called the score and select system, where you pass all of your ideas and your brainstormed ideas for each of the categories through like a litmus test, essentially. Very, very high level of that is basically we're looking to see if all the topics are like aligned with your paid offer, relevant or important to your ideal audience, and then they're going to be easy for you to go into detail on because this is a blog and you want to go deeper than just, an Instagram caption or something.
Yeah.
Um, And then you use that to select your best topics. And then you have a plan and then you can start writing in step 4. So I just say like, don't just jump right into step 4 and start writing, like have a content strategy first for your blog. That's really the point of step 3.
Nope, I like that. Um, when I started my blog way back in 2017, I just started with posts and questions that people were asking me all the time.
Yep.
And I just started one post at a time answering those questions. And over time, it has grown to be
Yeah.
quite a library of content.
Yep.
And I'm just now, actually, last week, I updated one of those posts for the very first time since I published it. And I made it like a much longer, deeper blog post. So you may even catch yourself doing that over time, going back
Yeah.
and updating and editing.
Yeah. That's one of the things I love about a blog. Like you can have your long form content could be, we did a whole live recently about like how we believe you need long form content now in 2024 to actually like sell your offers.
Yep.
Like short form's just not cutting it alone anymore. But your long form could be a blog, it could be a podcast, it could be YouTube videos like yours, Heather. The thing I love about the blog is that you can always go back and update it. And
Yeah,
you do, it's
I
just like
do.
happens naturally. And I love that about my blog is that if something's not quite right anymore in terms of the messaging that I have in it, or if I want to change out the call to action, or just if something's not right anymore, if it's just
Yep.
literally not accurate, you can update it. I love that about a blog. It's so good. So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. And I mean, your opinions may change over time and your offers
Yeah.
are most certainly going to morph. So anything that
Yep.
you do put in your blog, you're going to want to go back and edit and keep it up to date. So
Yep.
just keeping that in mind as you write and publish your content.
Yeah. That's also one of the things I like about the strategy that I always used on my own blog, which now I teach, in HLC,
Mhm.
which is that because you have this like capsule content, thing essentially. It's almost like a capsule wardrobe for your content, right? You have like there's 9 types of content and I teach, you do, 2 of this kind, 3 of this kind, etc. Because you have this tight little like body of work. It's like a small but mighty body of work. You can just keep track of all of them and go back and update them when you want. You can actually like eventually, again, this is not for bloggers who monetize with ads and we think of like the traditional food bloggers, for example, but you can actually, once you have a bunch of posts on your blog, you don't have to keep always creating new content. You can just use
Yeah.
this like small but mighty body of content that you've already created and like just stop and only write occasionally. So again, such a good thing about a blog. I love that.
Yeah, and the fact that you can republish with current dates and all of that, and Google
Yeah.
likes that when you update content and make it new.
Yeah.
That's what we're working on right now, and I think I maybe mentioned that in a recent live. I'm not writing anything brand new right now. There's very few brand new things going out.
Yep.
The majority of it, I would say close to 80% of all of our content going out on the blog right now is updates.
Cool.
So,
That's awesome. I'm actually in a different season. I was in that season for a while.
mm,
And then when in last year, at the beginning of last year, when I debuted high leverage content, when I finally started teaching this content strategy that I've been using for myself and clients
yeah,
for 8 years, I wanted to start creating a small but mighty suite of content to, sell HLC. So I'm actually doing new stuff now. I'm in a season where I'm doing new stuff because I want to grow this, again, small but mighty library of content that supports this offer that I have. So
yeah.
it's interesting.
Well, we have to keep our time tight today because we have to
Yeah.
get out the door in 6 minutes. So let's talk about promoting your coaching blog.
Yeah. So we did steps 1 through 3 and then 4. I think in your mind, Heather, you're putting 3 and 4 together, which totally makes sense. I do too. 4 is actually writing and publishing the content, and like you said, we're just, going kind of high level here. In the blog post that I wrote, the 5 steps for starting your coaching blog, I outlined the 4 steps inside inside
Mhm.
step 4 that I take people through to teach them how to write a
Mhm.
good blog post that's going to do what you want it to do as a coach, which is get you clients. So
Yep.
that's there. And then step 5, the final step is to promote and leverage your coaching blog because people don't realize that it's really important to get eyes on it. And yes, Google can be a way to get eyes on your content. And I know people are hearing that all the time. SEO, SEO, they think of blog, they think of SEO. I'm personally uncoupling those two things.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are these days. I think I'm sort of leading this movement from what I'm seeing. And yes, Google will find your content. Like Google will index your content. It's true. But it can take a while to get to the
Mhm.
point where um, Google is actually bringing you clients. And also, Google isn't just about putting a bunch of keywords in your posts, and
Yeah.
expecting people to show up for those keywords. It's really about writing helpful content, as is writing for your ideal audience to get them ready to buy is also about helpful content. So meanwhile, yes, Google will bring you traffic, even if you don't try. That's what happened to me in the beginning. That's what happens to everyone that I know is you
Mhm.
start writing for your audience and then Google just starts to index it because that's what Google does, and it brings you people eventually.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen right away. And so I teach people to focus on writing these pieces of content and then also leveraging visibility strategies to get people to that content. So it's really important to make sure you're sending your blog post to your email list. Even if it's a small email list, you start where you are at. You start where
Yeah.
you are at. If you're a social media girly, you don't have to be, but if you are, making sure you're sharing your blog posts on social media. Um, I teach like some different like frameworks for easily doing that. My gem pull framework we've talked about and my
Hmm.
great teaser framework. But yeah, it's important to actually promote. And I think people forget that. They think that you're just gonna create a blog and then it's just gonna magically, do its thing. And over time that can be true, but most people I know who start a blog, they want to accelerate their visibility now. And the best way to do that is to share what you've written with your audience in various places, even when your audience is starting out small.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And a lot of these platforms have greater reach. So if you're talking about Instagram or Threads or TikTok or whatever, a lot of these platforms do have the ability to reach wider audiences. So,
yeah,
just choose a platform. And this is a deep dive I'm actually doing next week for February is creating a little social media strategy around your content.
nice.
Um, Nothing too crazy. It's going to be pretty simple, but just like, what does that look like? And sometimes that's yesterday, for example, if you guys want to go visit me on Threads, I took just one slide out of my YouTube video yesterday and made one point about that. And so that's like your gem pole framework and
You got
pointed
it.
towards the YouTube video to get the whole thing.
Right.
Oftentimes I'll do that in my newsletter as well. So yeah,
Yep.
it's really just starting with choosing a platform where your audience is at, connecting with them on that platform and sharing your content. And
Yep.
it may start as sharing little bits of from the blog post in posts before you ever actually get people off of that platform to your website. So just building that. It's almost like building a second body
Yes.
of work on another platform, unfortunately. But you have this other content that you can use to
Yeah,
do that. You don't have to rewrite and restart everything with social media.
exactly. For
So
example, like I publish a blog post and there's 1,000 things I do with that blog post because again, I'm writing a small but mighty suite of content.
yeah.
So for every one of my 9 posts for HLC or my 12 posts or my 20 posts, whatever it's going to be, I'm breaking that into a million different things and
Mhm.
I'm promoting it. But like you said, I'm also pulling things out and using it as social media content. It just makes it so much easier when you have
Mhm.
this body of work to draw from. And one of the cool things is like I'll publish a blog, like let's say I publish a blog this week, a blog post. I'll do some things with it, and then I have like an Asana task to remind me in 3 months to do it again. You can always go back to your old stuff and
Yeah.
mine it again for more, more things to share. And share your old things too. I think sometimes people forget that. And I think part of it, again, goes back to this idea that like people are very used to thinking about blogging in terms of like the bloggers, the food bloggers, the parenting space bloggers, whatever, who monetize with ads and affiliate links,
Hmm.
constantly publishing new things all the time. That's part of what they have to do.
Hmm.
But that's not what we need to do as coaches and strategists and
No,
experts.
no. Okay. Well, it's 10:30. You need to get out the door.
Yeah,
So I'm going to be publishing some new YouTube videos that are coming up in the schedule over the coming days. We just have to finalize the thumbnails and get them scheduled.
cool.
So you guys will have some new stuff to subscribe to starting next week. In the meantime, Jana, I will see you later.
Okay, thanks. This was fun.
Bye. Hey, and we're out.